Okay, so this is a new thing that I'm going to be doing. I wouldn't necessarily say this is like a book review, but I would say that this is kind of my key takeaways, maybe some notes that I jot down from particular books. Coming into the new year, I've definitely been prioritizing reading quite a bit. Something I used to do in the past, really 2 years ago. The last year I was slacking, so I want to pick up the habit again and really make it a kind of ingrained. And I think what's going to make me stick with it really is kind of these videos. Lots of times I'll read a book, I'll take notes throughout it, or just jot down like key ideas or quotes that I think are cool. And then I'll just leave it on pen and pad and never read it again. So kind of using this as a way of documenting some of those notes and kind of putting together like a digital archive of my notes in video format. And I'm putting them out here. Just maybe after this you'll want to read this book, or maybe after this you learn something. So, and I think it's a good legacy piece to tie in there. So just jumping into it, the book I read recently, this is at the start of the year. I've read 3 books since, but this is the Almanack of Naval Ravikant. Guy is super, super full of wisdom. Like, honestly, I was trying super hard. I had to limit myself, only so many highlights in my notes throughout it, because it's one of those books that's pretty short. It's like around, I want to say, under 300 pages. But it is, yeah, just barely over 200 actually. But it is just like every sentence you read, you want to write down. At least I did. So I just want to dive into some of my key takeaways. And these might look a little different in the future. Might do like presentations or like slideshows. But for this one, we're just going to do it simple. And I have these noted as well, like digitally. So if I'll put it in the description for you to find that if you're interested. But the first takeaway for me is it was something that was harped on very early on in the book, but it's hard work is overrated, judgment is underrated. This really got me thinking about, you can work so hard and you can work every day, but you could be going in the wrong direction. Whereas someone, if they just took a time, it reminds me of that Abraham Lincoln quote. It's like, give me X amount of hours to chop down a tree. I'll spend the first 2, sharpening my axe. And I don't know the quote off the top of my head, but that is essentially the feeling that I got from that statement. It's better to take a step back and analyze versus just being the person who's just blindly working. And kind of an example that, or maybe a current event that's really applicable is AI. A lot of people, especially in coding, and this is something I've taken away from my master's program I'm in right now. But in coding, a lot of people want to do it on their own. Still, there's like that rebellious feeling towards AI, like they don't want to use it. And those are the people that, grind away at their computer. They're manually typing code. They're not really, really getting as much done as they can when they utilize AI. So they're falling behind. And I think, and I was kind of like that too. I 100% was like, screw AI. Like, I'm not going to be the first adopter. And honestly, I never want to adopt it because I still want to learn. And I realized how far behind I was falling, how many things I wasn't actually learning, especially with the evolving space of AI. So, I had to really take a step back and be like, okay, I can still learn if I kind of regulate this and tell the AI systems to explain the processes to me. Right now we're building for my master's program, we're building a website, or really a web application, and we are vibe coding it, right? So the AI kind of does a majority of the work, but you go through and you don't really have to understand it, but it really benefits you if you do. So having that judgment in place and kind of reinforcing it through even, work that you're not doing so hands-on is equally as important. And in the space of AI, like prompting is, kind of overlooked. And a lot of these universities, they're actually teaching you how to write good prompts, which I think is very important. So they're training that judgment, which I thought was interesting. So this book, I believe, came out before that era, and it seems like Naval had an insight into that trend that was coming. So judgment is underrated, and I firmly align with that ideology. Right here, your real resume is a catalog of all your suffering. I thought this was super applicable to my life, and because I hate to say it, but you really do learn a lot through struggle. And maybe I don't even hate to say it, but some reason when it comes to talking about going through suffering and all that, I tend to downplay it. Because I'm not sure if I've fully suffered. Like that word carries a lot of weight, and to me has, a different connotation, than the things that I've gone through. So, when it comes to suffering, I'll just give an example. This is probably the closest thing I've felt to suffering. And it would be, I lived out of my car in my senior year of college. I would go down to Tucson for the weekends, drive up to Tempe and sleep in my car from Monday through Friday. And I would shower at LA Fitness. I would nap at the library if I was tired. I was just going to all my classes. I actually started this podcast in that period of time. It was my first semester of senior year. And the reason for that was we weren't getting paid at work. We were building this awesome product that finally paid off at the start of the year, but it was in that growing pain period. And I firmly believed in it, and I still do. And throughout that process, I had racked up, maybe believed in it a little too much, but I had racked up like $16,000 worth of credit card debt. And I was living out of my car because I couldn't afford a monthly rent payment. So things of that nature, like I wouldn't trade that situation for the world, because in that, it literally was probably like at most a month and a half before I got my first place. And that's a funny story to dive into later. But in that period, I learned so much about myself. I was like in the best shape of my life, like shape that I hopefully gonna get back into this year, mentally and physically. And that whole period of time was just like, man, it was so stripped down. Like the only thing that mattered was getting, let's say, 5 to 6 hours of sleep. And if I got that, then my day it was so simple. Like I wasn't coming home. I didn't have to clean really. I just had to make sure I was clean, and it was simple. And I learned so much about myself and who I want to be, and what I was going to change when I made it to a position that was stable. And literally in a year's time, I was married, and I have an amazing wife, and we have an awesome place and a golden retriever now. It's amazing. So I always cite that as probably one of the bigger learning experiences of my life. So, your real resume is a catalog of all your suffering. Thought that was an amazing quote. This one right here, this is probably, I have a star next to this, but the closer you want to get to me, the better your values have to be. And I'll say it one more time. The closer you want to get to me, the better your values have to be. That honestly is like, that carries so much weight, and even talking about it, like I don't even want to ruin the weight of the quote. But to me, that is like probably one of the key takeaways of my last 2 years or 3 years of my life have really been this. The closer you get to me, the closer you want to get to me, the better your values have to be. And it really connects to the idea of like the quality of the people around you is who you'll reflect or who you'll become. And if you really care about who you'll become, you'll start to value the people that you have around you's values. That to me is key. My best man at my wedding, his name's Bozeman. Him and we had a conversation recently just about lying, and it's so weird because it's a trend that I've realized with maybe kids our age, or people our age. I always say I'm a kid. I don't think I'll ever stop that. But people our age, it just seems like there's not as much weight on the word that people carry, or the words that people carry. And maybe I'm looking too deep into it, but quite frankly, you look at your circle and you start picking up on all these lies, or like all these people misleading you. And that to me was quite frustrating. And I really started isolating my core friend group, and the group of my groomsmen. That was like the best people I've ever met. And I know their values are very strong, and those are really the people that I lean on, when it comes to friends, let alone a wife. I think that quote is very important. And, like my ex-girlfriends I dated they did not have as high quality of values as my wife does. And that was one thing to me why those, relationships didn't work out. And that's okay, but you have to really put a value on the values that are around you. This one right here, stop putting off the truth and live in reality. I thought this was very insightful and kind of connects to, I read, I want to say 3 years ago now, Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. That book is amazing. If you haven't read it, read it. I'm going to reread it for one of these series. But really, David Goggins has some of the most raw thoughts when it comes to, just kind of mentality. And I think in the book, it's very early on, he talks about, if you want to run, just run. If you want to be good at something, do it. And it's such a simple frame, and it's such a good way of looking at things, because everyone overcomplicates it. Everyone's like, oh, I need those new running shoes. I mean, even myself, like, people want to write. They're like, I need new pens. I need a new notebook. Really, it's just, you should write. If you want to be a writer, write. If you want to run, run. So you got to stop putting off the truth and live in reality. A lot of times people will be like, I want to get in shape, or they'll lie to themselves and they'll say they're in shape. That's kind of the place I was at the end of last year. I was just like, oh, it's not that bad. Like a couple minor fixes, and then you start realizing it's major fixes that you have to make. And that's just a part of the process. So, and I referenced the David Goggins book because that is a piece of it too. He like has an accountability mirror where he was fat, and he's like wrote on his mirror, he's like, I'm fat, and put it on the sticky note. Or wrote on a sticky note, put it on his mirror, sorry. So I think stop putting off the truth, live in reality is like such a valuable thing, and it really stems from accountability. This one is awesome. Praise specifically and criticize generally. I think very often, especially myself, like I will criticize specifically and praise generally. And I think that's human nature, to be like, oh, we all did a good job. But I could have done better here. Or maybe if you did this differently, this would have been better. Whereas it should be kind of flipped. It should be like, hey, you did an amazing job today, but we all could improve here. So I think that was just a good frame that I wanted to write down. And then if you can't decide, the answer is no. When it comes to decision making, I think anyone can value from that quote and kind of apply that insight. Like if you can't decide, the answer is no. And when it comes to major decisions that might take more time and people are pressing you to make them quickly, it's okay to be, either say no or ask for that time to step back. Take the path more painful in the short term if you can't decide between two options. Yeah, take the path more painful in the short term if you can't decide between two options. I thought this was powerful, very powerful, because it's so common in present day for everyone to kind of, take the good that's right in front of them. Everyone's kind of scared to delay gratification. If you look at the people who are addicted to social media, it's just dopamine hit after dopamine hit. And delaying gratification at that scale means putting down your phone and living life. And if it's boring, then it's boring, and you just have to be bored until something cool happens, until your wife comes home, or until you do something that's worthwhile or fun. Instead, it's all at your fingertips. It's not just content at your fingertips. It's dopamine. So I think things like that are, it's such a good way to put it. Take the path more painful in the short term. It sucks putting down your phone. It sucks. It really does. But it has to be done. You have to go out. You have to run. You have to work out. Things of that nature. And I'm getting better at this too. I've noticed my screen time has been going down on my phone, which is what really matters to me. This is kind of what got me into reading. Read as much as you can. Read what you love until you love to read. Start with the originals. I emphasize start with the originals because he makes a very interesting point. He's like, people are trying to read economics books, but they haven't started with Adam Smith, Wealth of Nations. And I thought that concept was very, very important to note. Like, how are we supposed to read an econ book if we don't know the foundations it was built on? You see that in religion. Like, for me, it's like I've read countless religious takes on certain topics, but I haven't read the Bible in full, which is a project I'm tackling this year, and very excited to do so. But reading what you love, that's key. Just building a habit of reading. And he even cites in here, he's like, read comic books, just build the habit, 10 pages a day, 20 pages a day, an hour a day. Just read and learn. And it's so important because words just come to you when you read. It's weird. I can't even explain it. And your thought process grows as you develop. It's amazing. Happiness is about the absence of desire. Happiness is about the absence of desire. So I thought this was such an intriguing thought, because it's exactly what I was saying here. And what you'll start to realize is familial, and what I talked about in the last video I did of just intentionality and doing a rollout of a media platform. What you're realizing and what I'm really seeing is, there is a lack of happiness, and there's countless articles to prove it. There's depression rates are soaring, and there seems to be no slowing down, and it's kind of sad. It's a weird situation that kind of seems self-inflicted by major corporations, and platforms are designed to make you addicted, and make you desire attention and desire, again, the dopamine hits. Happiness is about the absence of desire, is what Naval says, and I couldn't agree more. And it's something I didn't even think about. When you're unhappy, it's probably because you're desiring something else. And I kind of took that to a micro scale, but think about a larger scale of everyone wants more. Everyone. It's like we're all addicted to consumerism, and that's what it is. You're in a house that you just bought, and you're like, oh, I want a bigger one, or I'm in a Cadillac and I want a Rolls Royce now. It's like nobody is content. And I think that's what Naval was getting at, is you have to learn to kind of put your desire in a checks and balances. The greatest superpower is the ability to change oneself. The greatest superpower is the ability to change oneself. I thought this was awesome because we all change. We all change, but who's to say it's intentional or not? And I really looked back on my life and I was like, what points did I intentionally make a lot of change in my life? And really, it's only 2 or 3 times that I made like pivotal changes, and then the rest just kind of flowed into it. The rest of the changes kind of flowed into it. So I would love to kind of live in a state where I reevaluate every now and then more than I have in the past. Because changing oneself, you really have to go through something or, just take a step back and be a little self-aware, to actively seek and to make change. So that's something I want to work on. There's no peace of mind without peace of body. This is something that got me back in the gym, really back to running, which is where I want to be. And that's also brought me back to the gym, which is fun. But there's no peace of mind without peace of body. That's kind of self-explanatory. Like you got to just take care of your body and your mind will be more at peace. One thing I realized is it's like on the weekends, even if I would hang out after a busy week of work, I would be not content with my body or not content with what I did physically. Like, sure, it was my week was work demanding, but I didn't do enough physically. And getting to that realization is the first step in making that right step. And that's where I'm at. I want to get in better shape this year. And, maybe I'll share some of that here. We'll see. All benefits of life come from compound interest. Financially, of course, everyone knows that. If you're young and you don't have a Roth, set up a Roth, put that in the S&P and just never touch it your whole life. But the same goes for relationships, and the same goes for, the gym. It doesn't all just happen at once. You got to go in and you got to just put in the work, even if it doesn't feel exhausting one day. Like, it's beneficial long term, and that's key. Inspiration is perishable. Act on it immediately. See, I thought this is probably the most controversial just within what I've been told in the past. And this is my freshman year of college at ASU. I had Professor Matt McCarthy, who I hope to have on a podcast here. He said he was interested in doing one. But Matt McCarthy, he talked about, screw your passion, screw your inspiration. Like, it doesn't get you to work every day. And whereas Naval's like, okay, you're only going to have it for, let's say, 30 days. You got to do it now and act on it in those 30 days or now. So you have 30 days of inspiration. I think passion and inspiration carry a lot of weight, and it should be acted on to an extent. Obviously, I think you should evaluate it, but here I am again, kind of going back on my optimistic nature. So, I don't know. Maybe I'll take a stab at acting on inspiration, maybe acting on passion a little more, and I'll let you guys know how that goes. But that one was like the most conflicting, like a ton of people giving different advice. And then I went ahead and I watched Naval's podcast with Joe Rogan. And I wrote down 2 thoughts because, again, it was one of those podcasts where you're just like wanting to write and take notes on everything. But here's 2 things that I wrote down, and it connects to that last idea. But Naval says, you get enough advice and it cancels to 0. Exactly what I just went through. But I think it's especially important to note with kids. It's so easy to, like, kids are always be being given advice, and they're always being told what's good, what's wrong. And again, I think it connects to intentionality. Like you have to really set the tone and kind of intentionally guide them, not intentionally live their life for them. And that's something I kind of wish my parents did. And my parents did an awesome job with me, and they're amazing parents, not to knock them at all, but I kind of wish that was more prevalent, intentionality, and maybe not necessarily giving advice, but just kind of being a guiding hand. And it's something my stepdad has done incredible, like coming into my life and listening, giving a lot of his thoughts, and not overdoing it. And my mom has gotten, like, that's just rubbed off on her, and she's done the same. So it's amazing. Health, love, and your mission, nothing else matters. That's something, and honestly, it's a good one to end on. Those really, and I would say health, love, faith, and your mission. Those are really the four things that I'm focusing on. My mission here is really putting together, again, this content for my future kids, and honestly for me, just to look back on and hear my notes. And I'm excited to see videos like this even evolve into something bigger. I know my takeaways are not necessarily what you might take away when you hear a quote or hear these general ideas. So again, take everything with a grain of salt, and I hope it got you thinking a little bit. And I don't believe in the stone tablet model. I don't think I'm always right. So if there's something that I said that sticks out to you, or maybe I was scatterbrained and you want some more thoughts on a particular topic, feel free to drop a comment, and let's have a discussion. I'm all about that, and if that topic is bigger and you want to do a podcast, let me know. Let's do it. But I appreciate everyone. This book was amazing. Definitely check it out. It's literally changed my life. Shout out to my mother-in-law who got this for me for Christmas. She got me a bunch of books that will be on this platform, but she was amazing, and she pulled through with this. So this is one of the best like self-help books I've read, and it will make you critically think. So if you haven't read it, please read it. And if you want the notes in the description, let me know. I won't put those until that's like requested. But yeah, if you want to see my notes, let me know. So perfect. Thank you, everyone. If you stuck around, I appreciate it. And I hope you took something away here.